I'm banging the gavel, my cell phone on the desktop, and I'm calling the March 25th, 2020 meeting of the Imperial Beach City Council, special meeting at 5 o'clock today. I'm calling the meeting to order. Council members and staff, please mute your phone and while speaking at the appropriate time, please announce your name. So that's really important to make sure that when you speak, before you speak, say, this is council member so-and-so, or this is staff member so-and-so, so the public can know to keep track of everybody. I want to welcome everyone to our special meeting on March 25th and thank everyone for their patience and understanding as we navigate through this teleconference meeting and during this extraordinary time. We've never done this before, and so we're doing execution as learning as we adapt and pivot to this the new reality. This meeting must comply with Executive Order N29-20 and all other provisions of state law. We hope everyone at home is safe and healthy, and we appreciate your cooperation with the stay-at-home order and other actions to keep you safe. The city clerk will now announce the public comment process.
This is City Clerk Kelly. Members of the public can submit their comments on agenda items via email to comments@imperialbeachca.gov. Comments will be accepted until the mayor announces that public comment for that item is closed. After each staff report, there will be an approximate three-minute recess to allow residents to submit any questions or comments by email. If you would like to submit a comment for the public comment portion of the meeting, please submit comments now via email. Please note in the subject line the item on the agenda that you wish to comment on. Also specify if you would like your comment to be read aloud or just to be entered into the record. Please note only the first 100 words will be read aloud so that business can be efficiently completed at the meeting. Thank you.
Jackie, do you want to proceed with the roll call as well?
Yes. Councilmember Patton?
Here.
Councilmember West?
Here.
Councilmember Spriggs?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre? Here. Mayor Dedina?
Present. City Clerk Kelly, I was on mute when you were reading that, and then I asked you, could you be clear with the public who's going to be reading those comments so it's crystal clear when that happens?
Yes. When public comments will be read aloud, it will be read by either City Manager Hall or Assistant City Manager Cortez.
Great. Thank you so much for clarifying that. And now we would like to start the portion of the evening where we do disclosures and reports on assignments and committees. We will start to speak in the order as typically seen on the dais. We'll start with Councilmember Patton, and then please remember to mute your phone when you're not speaking. So Councilmember Patton, please take it away. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not going to be speaking a whole lot tonight. I think we're going to do a lot of listening. So I'm going to get this out. First, I'd like to wish everyone well during these uncharted times. Next, I hope everybody had the chance to read the mayor's letter that he sent out yesterday. It covers most of all what Imperial Beach is doing to keep our residents safe, ever changing every day. Finally, as lead of the public safety of the mayor's task force, I'm working with sheriff, fire department, lifeguards to continue to keep our city safe and secure. One note, if you see graffiti, please call the graffiti hotline, phone number, area code 619-210-1644. And please, please, please do not post on social media a picture of whatever that graffiti is. All that does is give them advertisement. Again, the phone number for graffiti hotline, area code 619-210-1644. 1644. Thank you. And that will be it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Patton. I appreciate that update and the announcement on the graffiti. Very important. And thank you for your service and leadership. I really appreciate it. Councilmember West.
Yes. So I want to reiterate. I just want to concur with what Councilmember Patton said, and then also as my assignment on the Mayor Task Force is going to be the business forum and our workforce as well. So we are tentatively working to have a virtual town hall early next week. We're working on a schedule. This will be coming out to all businesses in our community as soon as possible, and we're going to get all that information out on any means possible so we have max participation. The economic downturn that is happening right now is real, and we need to make sure that that our businesses are being supported. And on to, as the member of the South County, as your San Diego Regional Airport Authority, we had our meeting on Monday, and it was announced that air travel has been severely impacted by the virus. And in fact, our regional airport here is 83% down year to date from last year. It's not the worst in the country, but it is in the top 10 of the most impacted airports in the nation. And you can imagine that's really direct effect of our tourism. So we at the airport have implemented our stage 3 fiscal stability, and it is in effect. If anybody has any questions or would like some information about what that actually entails, we don't have enough time to go in to talk about it right now, but you can email me, and I would love to talk to anybody who has any questions about the airport. The airport is fiscally stable at this point, and we feel that the latest congressional and Senate and White House relief is a major shot in the right direction to make sure that travel returns. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Mr. West. Appreciate it. And we're glad you're back home safely. Councilmember Sprague.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I also hope everyone in Imperial Beach is safe, and that we all do our best to keep the social distance that's needed to defeat this virus. I am honored to be appointed by the mayor to head the preparation and recovery emergency work group, and have had a long meeting with Andy Hall yesterday, who has drafted a really good financial plan, and the outcomes of that will be discussed on the third agenda item, I believe, later on in this agenda. We are really shut down in most of my work areas outside of Imperial Beach, which would be expected. The Metro JPA meeting for next week has been essentially canceled. The League of California Cities policy committees are going to be held next week, but they're going to be held remotely online, including my Housing, Community, and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting. Our Coastal Commission Local Government Working Group already had its March 19 meeting canceled. That was supposed to be an in-person meeting in Sacramento. We are now reconstituting the committee. The good news, I think, is that we have 2 new commissioners from the Coastal Commission who are going to be working on that working group, they are both elected members of the Coastal Commission from local governments, replacing 2 commission members who were appointed and not elected local officials. And I'm very hopeful that this is going to create a more positive environment from the standpoint of the local governments. We will be probably having informal phone conversations over the next week or so to try to schedule a remote meeting of the new group very soon. So that's about all I have to report, and look forward to learning how we can operate under this new method. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Spriggs. Again, appreciate your leadership and your unconditional support for how we've pivoted and adapted to this new reality. And again, thank you very much. And your service on the task force. Mayor Pro Tem McGarry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to echo my colleagues' sentiment. I want to thank you, Mayor, and my colleagues for your leadership, our staff, but particularly our community for coming together in this great time of need. It's inspiring and heartwarming to see how our community has come together under these trying times. So I thank everyone for that. I've also am honored to have been appointed by the mayor to his task force and to be leading the high-risk population subcommittee, which will focus on rapid response for our vulnerable residents, food security, seniors, disabled, issues relating to housing. So we will, I'm sure, cover a little bit more on that on one of our subsequent agenda items later tonight. I will report that I attended remotely as a member of the MPS Board of Directors on March 19. We held our meeting via teleconference. We had a number of consent agenda items that we approved just so that our projects continue to move forward without delay. Obviously, top of mind for many of us were concerns relating to the services and the safety measures for MPS personnel and riders. So some of the measures that MPS adopted were to increase the distancing of bus operators and trolley operators to maintain at least 6 feet of distance so that they can remain healthy. Our ridership has fallen up to 50%, yet we maintain full service despite that. Just last week alone, we had 140,000 riders that continue to rely on our service. So that's very important to us because a lot of our riders depend on public transit to get to and from work. We have increased cleaning of all of our units, and so far we have not had to eliminate any positions. We are hopeful and remain positive that with a recent bill that was passed at the Senate that will provide assistance to public transit agencies, we will receive a portion of support of those $25 billion that were recently adopted for this particular matter. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem McGarry, again for all your leadership. And I just want to reiterate, thank all my colleagues on the City Council. You've been extraordinarily supportive and leaderful and very decisive from the very beginning for the last 2 weeks when first time that we decided to close our senior center and convince Little League to stop playing, as well as work with the county to get our library closed and just everything to have our staff work remotely right away. It's been clear that we've been taking actions to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and really to make sure that fewer people are infected and to promote the governor's executive orders on stay at home, as well as the county's business directives, et cetera. So I really appreciate, especially our leadership of our city staff under City Manager Andy Hall and Erica Cortez, our Assistant City Manager, but all the staff have been extraordinarily busy and committed to each and every one of our residents. So we do really appreciate it. And I want to reassure the public that one of the most important things despite all this crisis was that every single council member wanted to make sure that we figured out how to do a public meeting and to receive public comment and then maintain the physical distance. I'll be using the term physical distancing instead of social distancing. Physical distancing requirements to make sure that we could carry out the meeting, but obviously not get anyone sick in doing that. So I do appreciate that. And just a few things. We just received word from the Navy that unfortunately due to their workforce requirements in terms of stay at home, they are going to be doing helicopter operations on the weekends now. So we'll provide more update. We literally just received an email about that, and so we'll try to get that information out to our residents. I know that I'm not going to make residents along the south end of our city very happy, so we did express our concern to the Navy that our residents would be impacted by that. We had just worked with the Navy last week to, if folks might have known that there was an Army unit that showed up to assist DHS and CPB on border operations, and their generators were making a lot of noise 24 hours a day, and we worked with the Navy, who, again, doesn't have any control over the Army, to get those generators turned off. But that was tough on our residents as well. I appreciate all the folks that reached out to us. And we have a new Captain Dupree, who's our Coronado Naval Base commander. Andy Hall and I just went to his swearing-in ceremony literally 2 weeks ago. I think it was on a Wednesday, so exactly 2 weeks ago, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so he's brand new, but he's been very open and communicating with us constantly, so we do appreciate that. Additionally, I worked right before the border was closed, or limited. There's limited travel both ways through the border. I was able to be on a call with high-level officials from the Department of Homeland Security and mayors across the border, including mayors of representatives from San Diego and National City. I think Chula Vista as well, but and that was all across the border from Texas to California to explain what was going to happen. I think the feeling was generally very supportive. I think folks from Arizona and San Diego talked about, especially some of the agricultural workers that are coming across that have to literally are in now the most important business we have, and that's growing our food. And so I think DHS is receptive to that, but I did express to DHS my support for what they were doing, and also my request that they continue to, that they reach out to the White House to let them know that we were very concerned about Mexico's lack of response to the coronavirus. It's been very clear that the international community is condemning Mexico for its lackadaisical response to this issue. It's actually shocking to see how little they're doing, and that is the same in Baja California. Luckily, Mayor Kevin Faulkner really became a point person on trying to work with Baja California and was reaching out to the mayor of Tijuana and the mayor of Baja California, Jaime Bonilla, to try to get them to at least adopt some of the same measures we were in San Diego, in California. It appears that Governor Bonilla may be closing bars. I'm not clear of the status of that. At the same time, that the president of Mexico is encouraging people to go out to restaurants. So anyway, I think because of that, I think the border partial closure was absolutely necessary. There will be a Sandag board meeting on Friday, and they'll be experimenting with this new structure just as we are. And so I will be participating in that. And I think that's all for now. But I want to thank all the council members for stepping up to participate in the mayor's task force, and all the community members and staff members, in recognition that at this extraordinary time, we need everyone, all hands on deck, and everyone has been putting both hands on deck and really showing great leadership. So I do appreciate it. And I want to thank each and every one of our residents for hanging in there. And I think the big thing is we're going to get through this by working together as one team, and then we're going to start planning the recovery. I think that's really important to figure out how we're going to address this now, but more importantly, really focus on our recovery so we can get through this, and then really focus on doing great and recovering in a comprehensive way when it's over. So with that, I will turn it over to City Manager Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, I just have a couple of announcements tonight. I know there are several residents that have been following our Regional Housing Needs Assessment numbers, or RHNA numbers, and that meeting has been rescheduled. And right now, the current schedule for that meeting will be on April 10th. When we know more information, we will get it out to the public. So I know people are interested in that. I want to join the mayor and council in commending our residents about how they have helped us deal with this situation. As we know, the beach is closed. That's really important in our community, but they have been very, very supportive of that. And Chief Stabenow reported today that people have been very helpful in that regard. Related to that, we also heard from our sheriff's lieutenant this morning that calls are actually down. And so we really, again, appreciate that people have been so cooperative during this difficult time. And then finally, we wanted to make sure that the mayor and council, as well as the public, knows that each morning the department heads get together and we do share notes. We make sure that all of the essential duties of the city are being carried out. Just want to make sure that everybody knows we are in touch with what's happening, and feel free to contact us if you have any special needs in the community. So thank you for that, Mayor.
Yeah, I want to make sure I add additional comments on some of the communication. So I've been in constant contact with Mayor Faulkner. Today, we were alerted by residents that the South Bay Swap Meet on Coronado Avenue, where the drive-in is, was open with hundreds of people, and immediately contacted Mayor Faulkner, who said, and he was following up on it. I worked immediately with our Lieutenant Marquez of the Sheriff's Department, who followed up with the Southern Command of San Diego Police Department. And also we had to clarify to residents that's not an Imperial Beach, that's a City of San Diego issue. So again, we were shocked as many residents were to learn that the swap meet was open and a gathering place for hundreds of people. Yesterday, I communicated with Sheriff Bill Gore and thanked him for his clear communications on how to implement the governor's and county health department's directives, as well as to let him know that I was very impressed with our sheriff deputies and the leadership of Lieutenant Marquez. So I want to thank our sheriff's deputy, but obviously all of our public service staff that have been completely on it. So that's great. And then I've been in constant communication with mayors and leaders around the region, including Mayor of National City, Andrew Alejandro Sotelo Solis, Mayor Mary Salas, Corey Schumacher, council member in Carlsbad, and leaders in Encinitas, Del Mar, and Solana Beach, as well as constant contact with Mayor Faulkner. So he's committed to supporting us as well, and I really appreciate his support at this time. And I thank him for his leadership on the beach issue, as well as for his leadership on Mexico as well. So I'll end there. So continue, Mr. Hall.
No, thank you, Mayor. That is, I believe, all the comments that the staff has. And again, we appreciate all the support that we've gotten from the community and from the council. It's made this a very smooth transition, and we just appreciate everybody's help.
Great. With that, I think I'm going to turn it over to City Clerk Kelly to help us work through the public comment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the public can submit their comments on agenda items via email to comments@imperialbeachca.gov. If you would like to submit a comment for the public comment section or consent calendar portion of the meeting, please submit those comments now via email. And remember, only the first 100 words will be read aloud so that business can be efficiently completed at the meeting. Thank you.
Staff, have you received any comments via email?
Mayor, good evening. Assistant City Manager Cortez. Yes, we've received several comments. Some of them are related to the items on the agenda, so we'll read them out later. We do have one general comment as of right now, which I will read for the record. Will Nimmo, resident of Iris Avenue, District 4, Mayor Dedina, City Council, Mr. Hall, and staff. I like to express my sincere appreciation for you all as you continue the business of the city through these uncertain times. Mr. Hall, in particular, answers my emails as fervently and quickly as always, and our community is better for his guidance. Regarding food and supply uncertainty in our town, we have created a Facebook group called IB Cares, dedicated to neighbors helping neighbors. If you need something during this crisis, IB will be there to help you. I encourage City Council and staff to join as well. IB Church is hosting a food distribution Friday from 1 to 4. No additional public comments.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Cortez. And so the comment period is now closed, and we will move on to consent calendar item number 1, and that's resolution number 20-17, continuing the proclamation of a state of local emergency relating to impacts from cross-border pollution in the Tijuana River. Can I comment on that before we start? Are there any comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
So it's very clear for those of us who read the pollution levels that the data that we get back from the county and the city of San Diego that do the water quality monitoring, the pollution levels have been literally off the charts. I think we have been really alarmed by how polluted the water is, the smells in the water, and of course, and then the length of the pollution plume, which has been generally you'll see it hit the Silver Strand State Beach in Coronado, but what's been very clear is that, and generally you can see a pretty decline in pollution levels. I don't think I've ever seen for so long such high pollution levels at the Silver Strand and even in Coronado, and it's unrelenting, and it's very clear that Tijuana is emptying its entire sewer system into the river. It's raw sewage, and so we have been in constant communication, and I know Councilmember Aguirre has with state and local leaders, including Bill Cratch from Senator Feinstein's office, and we just submitted a letter to Mike Levin, Congressman Levin, about asking for the EPA to help. I've been communicating with Congressman Scott Peters about that as well. 2 weeks ago, Andy Hall and I and Chris Helmer from the city did meet with the EPA Region 9 director, or a virtual meeting, and we should have had a meeting already about with the EPA to follow up on the $300 million and what are we potentially $100 million now for the state of California. But obviously, due to the strong interest on the part of EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler, who's made it clear publicly that he really supports this process, that didn't happen. And so I think the goal is now to have a meeting that he would be involved in. So it was a very positive phone meeting that we had with the new Region 9 administrator. He's very supportive. He said that his son, who's a special forces person, knew all about the Tijuana River. And so that was encouraging. We really have appreciated the support of the EPA on this issue. At the same time, 2 weeks ago, I met with the president of Mexico's border advisor, Pedro Romero, to talk to him about obviously our strong concerns about the increased level of sewage in the river. He was very blunt and telling me that this is before it was like the day before things got really bad with the crisis. So letting me know that there was very little money in Mexico to address this, and he seemed to feel very little political will, at least at the local level in Tijuana, to address this. That's been contradicted by the Consul of Mexico, but it's clear now with this crisis that the federal funding and need to do investment on the U.S. side of the border is greater than ever, and that this crisis will have a significant impact on Mexico's capacity to get things done. But we've also just been reaffirmed by the EPA that this money has been appropriated and is secure, so that we will be able to move this process forward. So that's encouraging. But I think everything points to the fact that this city council has been right all along to support investment in U.S. side infrastructure to divert that sewage out of the river, because the public health impacts and environmental impacts of having 3 miles of sewage flow within the river valley, as well as up to 15 to 20 miles of beaches polluted with highly toxic sewage, is not something we can abstain. So we'll keep you guys posted on how this proceeds. That's all I have on that. So I'd like to entertain a motion to get support item number 1, resolution number 2020-17.
Motion.
This is Mayor Pro Tem.
It sounds like we have Councilmember Patton was first, and then Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre was second. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Great. City Clerk Kelly will take an oral roll call vote.
This is City Clerk Kelly. I will now take an oral roll call vote. Saying aye is a vote in favor of the item, and a no is a vote against the item. There has been a motion by Patton, second by Aguirre, to approve the consent calendar. Councilmember Patton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember West, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Spriggs, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mayor Dedina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great, thank you so much. And now we have report item 1, and that's resolution number 2020-18, temporarily changing the time for holding regular city council meetings to 5 p.m. effective April 1, 2020 until further notice during the COVID-19 emergency. City Manager Hall will give the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2020-18 is a resolution that clarifies the meetings for the foreseeable future until we're through the COVID-19 emergency. And these meetings will be held electronically, and it is proposed that we change the time of the regular meeting from 5 o'clock p.m. effective April 1st, 2020 until further notice rather than 6 p.m. Other than that, Mayor, we are open to City Council comments. And again, this is Resolution 2020-18.
City Council, if there are comments, let's go in the order of that we do. I think it's Mr. Patton, then Mr. West, and then Mr. Spriggs. Actually, I can't remember the order now. What's your? How do you suggest we do this, City Clerk Kelly? So I'm clear on how we just again clarify how we do the City Council comments.
Sorry, I had it on mute. Mr. Mayor, if you could please go in the order that that council members sit at the dais, which would be Council Member Patton first.
Okay, and then I'm trying to look at the scripts that I have the list on, but I have to move away from so it's Mr. Patton, Mr. West, is that right? Or Spriggs?
Council Member Patton, followed by Council Member West, then Council Member Spriggs, and then Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre.
Thank you for your help on that. Mr. Patton, do you have any comments?
No comment.
Mr. West?
No comment.
Anybody else comments at all? Mr. Spriggs or Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre?
This is Ed Spriggs. I just would like the city manager to briefly explain, the reasoning behind the change from 6 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And other than that, I have no comment.
Mayor, would you like me to do that now?
Sure, yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you.
So in some of the briefings that we had when the crisis first broke out, we talked about being able to reach out to our public and have public meetings. The city council discussed the fact that most people now are at a stay-at-home order, and so much of these meetings are originating in people's homes, and they thought that it might be less intrusive to the residents if these meetings started at 5, so they may be over by 6 or 6:30 before the dinner hour, and maybe perhaps before trying to put kids to bed and whatnot. So moving it up a little bit might be more convenient to people who are now probably watching these meetings from their homes.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hall. Any additional comments?
Yes, this is Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre. I'm supportive of, the change with the rationale that City Manager Hall just mentioned, making things easier for the community to be able to participate in our meetings, and being mindful that once the COVID-19 emergency ends, we can transition back to 6 p.m. to give folks who work the opportunity to join us in council chambers.
Great, thank you. Any additional comments? Okay, and then City Clerk Kelly, I think we have to now talk about the public comment process.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We will take an approximate 3-minute recess to allow residents to submit any questions or comments by email. Members of the public can submit their comments on this agenda item via email to comments@imperialbeachca.gov. Please specify if you would like your comment to be read aloud or just to be entered into the record. Please note, only the first 100 words will be read aloud so that business can be efficiently completed at the meeting. Thank you.
This is Mayor Dedina. I'm calling the meeting back to order. The comment period is now closed. Mr. Hall, it appears that you have a public comment. It's general public comment. Is that correct?
That's correct. So after this item, we will address that item which was intended to be part of the public comment section. But again, we're kind of all learning this together. So we'll get through this item and then move back to that item if you don't mind.
So the comment period is now closed. Staff, do you have any comments? Do you have comments received via email?
No, Mayor.
Okay. So and now we'll just go back to the general public comment period. And so you can, Mr. Hall, someone can read that email that we received.
Okay. Mayor,
oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we might want to finish that item by a vote, and then I'll go back.
I'm sorry, you're right. Great, okay. Are there additional questions or comments from the City Council? Great, okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2020-18.
Ed Spriggs, so move.
Councilmember West, second.
Thank you. City Clerk Kelly will take an oral roll call vote.
This is City Clerk Kelly. I will now take the oral vote. Roll call vote. Saying aye is a vote in favor of the item and no is a vote against the item. There has been a motion by Spriggs, second by West, to approve resolution number 2020-18. Councilmember Patton, how do you vote?
I'm pushing my button. It's not working.
Working now.
Oh, aye.
Thank you. Councilmember West, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Spriggs, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mayor Dedina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great, thank you. Now we have item number 2, update on city's response to COVID-19 pandemic, and Assistant City Manager Cortez will give the report.
Mayor, just real quick, I'm going to go back, if you don't mind, to the public comment that we had that kind of came in late, and then we'll move forward. Not a problem.
Okay, fine.
One of our residents, Catherine Scholl, wrote in a question, and I will respond to it in behalf of the City Council. She mentioned she wanted it read aloud. I am disabled, waiting for a full hip replacement on my left hip, and currently have my right hand in cast. On top of that, due to hospitalization last week for severe asthma virus, which was COVID negative, she wanted to point out, I'm also in a mandatory quarantine at my home. With all the street construction and heretofore, there has been no handicap parking around IB Gardens, which leaves me parking as everyone is staying home, sometimes blocks and blocks away, and hauling in my groceries. Please, can we not get a few handicap parking spaces on IB Boulevard? And then she provides her address and says thank you. So we will respond to that tomorrow, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hall. I appreciate that. And that's why it's important to have these meetings, so we can get that feedback from our residents and also the task force and support other initiatives to make sure we can reach out to our residents who are having issues and problems at this time that we can help solve. So with that, we'll go back to item number 2, update on city's response to COVID-19 pandemic. And Assistant City Manager Cortez will give the report. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public. Thank you for having us. I'm going to start right from the beginning just for education of the community and things that we've been doing for the last almost 2 weeks. So the presentation that I'm going to provide is in a series of dates and some of the actions that we've been taking. I just want to highlight that we follow the guidance from the CDC and ongoing and continuous communication with the County of San Diego and health officials. So this is an update on Imperial Beach response to COVID-19. All right, so it all started with week of March 9th. Andy and myself jumped on a call during the weekend, and we said, you know what, we need to do something about preparing for this in the event that it does actually elevate. So during the weekend, we went ahead and sort of tackled some of the things that we can do as staff. We met with our department heads. We said, you know, we need to identify emergency contacts, the essential and non-essential personnel. We need to buy some laptops for all of the employees that can actually work from home. And so we intended to do this as a drill on Monday, the 13th. However, with the development of the COVID-19, it accelerated for us to say it's not a drill. It's actually we're taking action. You are going to be working from home and you have laptops and you're all set up and equipped to do that. And so we issue the laptops and everybody is at home, very efficient and effective, doing everything. However, our essential functions are still being done. So that said, we did actually close some of our facilities, starting with our senior center and some of the other events that the city hosts, like Farmers Market and the Small Business Expo. On March 12th, the county had an order saying that any gatherings of 250 people or more are prohibited. Therefore, the City of Imperial Beach Council, all of the events, including city and non-city related, all the way to July. In addition, we reached out to the county and we added 4 hand wash stations that we will place at 170 Palm, Dunes Park, Bikeway Village, and bus stop at Palm Avenue. Rainbow. These are the ones that are hit most of the vulnerable community. We have asked for additional wash stations. We're still waiting for the county to confirm that. On March 16th, the City of Imperial Beach had a special meeting where a proclamation was passed for our local emergency and declaration, declaring state of emergency. That same day, the county added another order to prohibit gatherings of 50 plus. This includes on-site dining for restaurants and bars have to be closed. In the next slides, I will highlight a little bit about what does that mean, because we are getting some questions from the community. And again, we are working very closely with the county to get further clarification. In addition to that, our Community Development Department developed procedures for online permits, payments, and inquiries, because I like to highlight that although City Hall is closed for the public, we are still in business and continue to function with our essential services that we provide. The life and safety of the graffiti, like Mr. Patton said, is very important. He did a great job highlighting that don't post on social media. We do have a graffiti removal hotline, and this has been one of our priorities in critical aspects at our Public Works Department. So appreciate all the leadership of Eric Minichilli and his staff and the Sheriff's Department for also reporting that. Also on March 16, the school district, South Bay School District in Sweetwater, which is our Mar Vista High School, notified us that the schools would be closed until further notice. So the kids are now at home. Moving on to still a continuation of March 16, where the county mandated gatherings of the 50 plus, prohibiting and discouraging that. What it means for restaurants is that the restaurants are still open, may still be open. However, they may not do dine-in. They would only be able to deliver food, pick up food, or have people drive through. When people are doing all those 3 items, there has to make sure that either by the business or by the individuals picking up, delivering, or the drive-through, that the social distancing is still followed, which is the 6 feet separation. The bars, establishments should not be open. They have to be closed unless obviously because they're bars, they're not restaurants. All businesses must also establish social distancing. So those that are open, which are the essential functions, which we'll get into that in a moment. All businesses must increase their sanitation standards. All businesses shall make every effort to allow their employees to telecommute. And the schools said, no holding classes, and to allow for the social distancing or the physical distancing, like the mayor indicated. And anybody who is on an underlying condition or 65 years or older with certain medical conditions, the county is asking them or advising them to do self-quarantine for a minimum of 14 days. Highlighting some of the services that the Community Development Department developed during this time includes building inspections, building permits, code enforcement, encroachment permits, fire safety, planning, zoning, and other things that are related to the Community Development Department. It is critical for us to highlight that inspections are still being conducted for anything that is critical, that is foundation related, framing, or if it's a final inspection or life safety. This information is also available on our website for anybody who would like to follow up on these services. Here is the information for the graffiti. Please, if you see graffiti, report it to our graffiti hotline by calling 619-210-1644. Moving on to March 17, the city adopted a resolution to suspend all residential evictions during the local emergency. I want to take a couple of minutes to also highlight a little bit of this, because we have been getting a lot of calls and emails from landlords. What does this mean? Does it mean that my tenants don't have to pay me rent? No, tenants are still obligated to pay rent. What this helps is, due to the COVID-19, if any of the people living in the renting can't pay their rent because of they lost income, or their spouse lost income, or they have out of medical expenses, things like that, the landlords cannot evict them. There is a sunset that expires on May 31st. If anybody has any questions on that, they can email ibcmanager@imperialbeachca.gov, and we can provide additional clarification. Also on March 17, the city closed parks, some restrooms, Pier Plaza restroom and the pier restrooms are still open. Like Mr. Hall mentioned, the beach has been closed, and everybody seems to be cooperating in the community. We appreciate that. March 18 and March 19, the gathering went from 250 to 50, now to 10. So gatherings of 10 or more are prohibited. That means the gyms and any fitness centers closed. Staff has driven around to make sure that the businesses, including the restaurants, have been in compliance. They've cooperated. Our sheriff's department has also helped us with a lot of the drive arounds just to make sure that they're complying. Then the governor issued a new order, which is to stay home except for essential services. This is a picture of our beach, as you can see, taken on March 24th, that there is no people walking or congregating there. We follow the CDC, the County of San Diego, and we also post a lot of information on our website. The City of San Diego came up with a new text messaging system where you can actually text COSD COVID-19 to 468-311 to continue to get updates from them. With that, my presentation concludes. Mayor, if you would like to open it for any comments or questions from the City Council.
Well, why don't we, thank you, Assistant City Manager Cortez, why don't we go to public comments, and then we can have the council discussion and ask questions. So City Clerk Kelly, you want to provide us feedback or read the information on public comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Once again, we will take an approximate 3-minute recess to allow residents to submit any questions or comments by email. Please submit comments on this agenda item via email to comments@imperialbeachca.gov. Thank you.
Mayor, this is Assistant City Manager Cortez. 3 comments have arrived related to the presentation.
All right, I'm calling the meeting back to order. And so could you please read the comments?
Yes, Mayor. Assistant City Manager reading 3 comments. Comment number 1 from Danielle Munoz. Why are restaurants and other non-essential businesses around IB still open? Is it not the intent of stay-at-home order and social distancing to keep people from potentially infecting others? Keeping these non-essential businesses open only motivates people to go out and congregate. Yesterday, I saw people at Mike Hess, Coronado Brewing, and other conducting businesses as usual, as if a pandemic can't affect IB. Why is the city of IB allowing this? Comment number 2 from.
Wait, did someone, wait, stop, can you stop, Assistant City Manager Cortez? Mr. Hall, how do we want to do this? To respond to each comment or just receive the comments? Do you want to answer that, or just answer all these issues? If there's specific technical issues on closures, et cetera, you want to answer those at the end?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll read all the comments because some of them are repeat comments, and then we will answer the questions that are appropriate, as appropriate.
Thank you.
Comment number 2 from Catherine. Please consider closing the beach to walking. The day before the closure, I walked 5 miles and saw 3 people from a distance. That isn't Santa Monica or Encinitas with people flocking the beach. It's people from IB who need exercise and the comfort being on the beach gives. Please, please, if you see a huge crowd, you could close it, but there aren't. We're always been treated different from the clean beaches. Can't we be treated differently now? Please. Comment number 3 from Cheryl Quinones. Good evening, Mayor Dedina and Council Member. During this unprecedented time, we are proud of the way in which our school district continues to support the South Bay community. Our website, www.seusd.org, has been redesigned to share the latest news on school closures, meal service schedules, distance learning opportunities, and COVID-19 updates from public education and health officials. We encourage families and residents to visit this site for the latest information. Parents and community questions and comments may be submitted via the Let's Talk application on the main page of the district website. South Bay team is working during what is now our spring break and will respond to all messages. We are grateful for our partnership with the City of Imperial Beach to ensure the health and well-being of our students, families, staff, and community. There's a 4th comment that just arrived. Does IB have any known cases? Where can someone get tested nearby? Do you expect any virus issues associated with the Tijuana River Valley sewage? Thank you. This message was from Vivian Marcus Waller. Forgot to add, please read out loud. Mayor, those are the final comments.
Great.
So, Mayor, if you'd like staff to address a couple of those, we would be glad to address the ones that are appropriate for tonight that don't require council action. I think this is a unique circumstance, Mayor. We don't normally respond to public comment, as you know, but I think that these are extenuating circumstances where we want to provide the public immediate education to the extent that we can. So if you're okay with that, Mayor, we'll try to answer those.
Absolutely. Please proceed.
Okay, good. So wanted to again reiterate what the Assistant City Manager said, and that is that the restaurants are allowed to be open, but only for takeout, delivery, or drive-through. We have had several people concerned about some of the establishments in our town where people are still either waiting for their food, or maybe they get their food and they gather right there close. And so we're trying to discourage that, and we have been working with some of those businesses where that's been happening, and we will continue to do that. In terms of the school district, we've been trying on our webpage to keep some of the free meals, some of the educational opportunities and homeschooling types of information on our webpage. So if you are a parent and you are looking for a connection to the school district, we have those connections, but I would also encourage you to go to the South Bay Union School District webpage and the Sweetwater Union High School District page. They have both posted very, very meaningful information about the schools. Wanted to talk about the beach closure a little bit. We believe we tried very hard. As far as we know, we were the last beach community in the county to close our beaches. What the county has said is that if a city cannot guarantee the social distancing requirements of 6 feet, then we need to close our beach. It gets very hard at times to require that social distancing at the beach, and especially where we have a scaled back staff right now. And so our beach has been closed. I know that's a watershed moment for our community. I think we took that very seriously, but we also take the potential of harming our lifeguards or other people that are at the beach. And so we have followed suit, and our beach is closed at the current time as well. One of the things that she mentioned, though, I think is our biggest concern. We were talking to our Marine Safety Chief. We know that this weekend is going to be quite warm, and as is next week. And so the gatherings at the beach were likely to increase. It is very hard to close a beach once the people are there. It's very hard to get people off the beach if you have thousands of people on the beach. It's probably better an ounce of prevention here in the current circumstance, so that's why we closed the beach. But those are some of the responses that we would have to the comments that were made, Mayor, unless you wanted us to expand on any others.
There's one more on the
Are there additional public comments?
Oh, yeah, Mayor. One other thing, there was a question on whether or not there are any cases in IB. We can only pass on the information that we get from the health department, and the latest information that we received from the health department, which came in today, is that Imperial Beach is one of the 3 cities in the county that still do not have a case identified in Imperial Beach. So that's really a positive thing. But again, I think it's somewhat imperfect information, and it's changing very quickly. So the last information we got is that there are no known cases in Imperial Beach.
If I may add,
Great.
Mayor, this is Assistant City Manager Cortez. If I may add, this information is public knowledge. It's on the County of San Diego website. The county does have a section on coronavirus in San Diego. When they open that section, there is an actual map that they can click. There's a list of all the cases in the county, and if they keep scrolling down, there's a summary of county by city, and that is what we've been told by the county is being updated on a daily basis. So again, this is public knowledge, and the public may view that.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Cortez and Mr. Hall. Are there additional public comments, or is that are we done with the public comment period?
Maybe the only other thing I'd follow up on, Mayor, is that there was a question on whether or not the Tijuana River Valley and the pollution in the river valley could carry coronavirus. I don't have an answer for that, so I would hate to comment. So I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm going to end the public comment period now. I'll close that public comment period, and then we can start the city council discussion. And I will start with, first of all, thank you again for reading the public comments and answering those questions. And I know that we're working very closely with the county health department and the state of California. Those directives are legal orders from the county health department and the state of California. So we must comply with them. Anyway, so I appreciate that. Mr. Patton, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Assistant City Manager Cortez, for the clear and concise report. That was a lot of information there. To me, the less chit-chat, the better. We'll keep listeners listening and coming back later. So I'm going to say no comment. She covered it all.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Mr. West?
Yeah, just I just want to kind of reiterate what Councilmember Patton said, and that was a great report. And I also want to thank the entire City Council that when I was in my absence, the job that you did was amazing. And it showed just because, you know, most of the other communities are actually following behind our lead and doing many things that you guys already did while I was gone. So I applaud each one of your efforts, and I think that I think it's just commendable what you've done. And then last but not least, I think it's important for our community to take the time to try to support our businesses as well, because in many of these businesses that the definition of small doesn't even reflect them. They are micro in many ways. And something like this is taking the lifeblood out of a lot of these businesses. And I would really, I've tried to make it my, to take a little time to frequent and take the takeout from these restaurants. And I was very happy to see when I went into Coronado Brewing Company that they had actually placed a table that is 6 feet long between the pickup and the personnel at Coronado Brewing Company to make sure that they are actually following the lead and the guidance that the governor has set forth. So I really want us to take the time to support some of our small businesses, because this is an economic tsunami of disaster that's happening for them just as much as it is for our people. So I applaud the people who are doing the right things and making sure that that the distances are maintained, but I would like us to embrace some of them and get out there and support our local businesses.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. West. Mr. Spriggs?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'll just reiterate very quickly. I think it was an outstanding report, but the report details all the work that the city has done to implement state, national, and county directives. And I think we've done very well to keep up with and be ahead of most other cities in that regard. I think one should point out that we had 3 council meetings last week, which were special meetings by conference call. These meetings were noticed to the public as well, and they were emergency sessions to discuss a number of these policies and issues. And I'd just like to assure everybody in Imperial Beach that, you know, we did have a robust discussion of which measures to take and when to take them, including the beach closure issue and the pros and cons of that issue. So, you know, we're working very hard as a city council to deliberate on these things, and when we have the time to do it, sometimes there's no time. It's an emergency situation, and the mayor and the city manager have to act. But basically, we are keeping abreast of this as your representatives and talking through all the implications, positive and negative, for each of these decisions. Just wanted to inform everyone of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spriggs. Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to thank Assistant City Manager Cortez for a great report. It's very thorough. I just want to echo some of my colleagues' comments. These have been very difficult decisions that we have had to make. Sobering moments, in fact, knowing that some of these decisions would have severe economic repercussions. But I just want to emphasize that at the end of the day, our goal is to keep our residents alive and safe and healthy. And we will work through this coming together, and we will figure out a way to not just survive, but thrive. And I have full confidence in our community and our staff and in our council that we will be able to come out of this successfully. And I just, again, want to thank everybody for being proactive and not reactive to this incredibly dire situation. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank Assistant City Manager Cortez, and then, of course, City Manager Hall, but all my council colleagues for their decisive and proactive leadership on addressing this crisis and complying or being ahead of the directives of the County Department of Health and the state of California. And I just want to remind those listening in that we are under legal orders that we must comply with these directives. And the beach issue was very clear, again, that we had directives from Sheriff Bill Gore in terms of the social distancing requirements, as well as the directives from the state of California and the County Department of Health. So I was on the phone with Mayor Faulkner today. It's my understanding that at least 5 firefighters in San Diego have COVID-19, and it's my understanding that they may be in the hospital. It's clear that the beach issue is driven around not only having vectors for spreading this disease, as we saw with ski resorts in Colorado especially, that became vectors for transmission of COVID-19 with deadly results. It's very clear that the concern also with what we're increasingly seeing, and that is the folks in the public safety world, firefighters, police officers, and then lifeguards potentially getting sick, right, and or are getting sick. And so that was completely driven by public safety needs for our public at large, and also to protect our public safety professionals. There was a discussion there was a question about the impacts of Tijuana sewage. It's very clear from researchers at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, not about the correlation between sewage and COVID, and that's under some debate and discussion now, right, in the scientific community, but at least the public health impacts of the aerosol or air quality impacts of this on our health at Imperial Beach. It's very clear that we need an epidemiological study to look at those impacts. And it's very clear that people are getting very, very sick from the aerosol impacts of the Tijuana sewage, especially as Tijuana has or the state of Baja California has blatantly been dumping highly polluted, contaminated levels of sewage in the Tijuana River that have been reaching in the air. We can smell it as well as in the water. So that's something we need to follow up on with the County of San Diego and the state of California, because this is not sustainable as it's going. But obviously, I know my health has been impacted by the aerosol impacts of sewage, and that has implications for your lungs and other types of respiratory and sinus infections, which makes you more susceptible to COVID. So we know what a public health crisis looked like before this, and now we realize that we only realize more that this is something we've got to address now, in addition to COVID, obviously, and get the public health officials from the County of San Diego to really help us address this. So I'll stop there. But again, I want to thank everybody for their wonderful effort. And obviously, this is far from over. And so we've got to work together. And one thing I do want to assure the public, and I'm reminded this by city staff and our city councils, every resident of Imperial Beach counts, from our newest newborns to our eldest and most respected members, senior members of our community. And I want to make this clear, because there's been discussion nationally about how some certain sectors of the population should sacrifice themselves for the community. Every member of Imperial Beach counts equally. We are carrying out these actions. Our only mission is to protect public health and safety, and we care about every and each one of our residents. We will not discern between age, race, gender, sexual orientation or any other issue in terms of how we treat our residents, who gets care from us. We will make note, there will be no death panels at Imperial Beach. We will make sure that we do everything possible for our most respected senior members of our community, to our newborns, and everyone in between. Everyone matters here, and that's our only priority here, is to protect and secure the safety and health of every resident. So I'm really proud of our council and city staff and our residents who have made that clear that that's their priority as well. And that's what these actions have been driven on. We've heard from you about your concerns. We are listening. We want to hear more from you, and we will continue to comply with these orders and do everything we can to get through this and reduce the exposure to COVID, but more importantly, work together with our council members, our city staff, our allied agencies, our business community especially, and public health professionals and medical professionals to get through this and then recover. So again, thank you all for that. I really appreciate it. There's no action needed. So with that, we will move on to item number 3, and that's to receive and file financial recovery plan in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And City Manager Hall will give the report.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate first all the help that I have received from the Assistant City Manager and other members of staff and Councilman Spriggs and all the members of the City Council who have provided comments on this. One of the first things we know we needed to do is that in a community that has limited financial resources, we knew we needed to put together as quickly as possible a financial roadmap that would allow us to move through this situation and help us to understand the impacts that we're going to have on our budget that would give us the best chance of recovering as quickly as we can once this situation is behind us. So one of the things we wanted to do was prepare for a reduction in revenue. We know that certain businesses are closed, there are fewer people staying in our hotels and other things that are happening in our community, so we wanted to prepare for that. We also need to identify solutions to the general fund shortfall. Because there's going to likely be, or there already has been and will be, a reduction in revenue, we needed to make sure that we're taking actions now so that we can continue to maintain a balanced budget. We need to implement some new financial policies and some emergency measures during the duration of this event so that we can quickly correct. And that's one of the real strengths of our organization, is that we're nimble and we're able to move quickly through some of these things. And then we also want to make sure that we're exploring options for a prolonged event. We hope that, like in other instances, that this might go away with warmer weather, and hopefully we can, with that and some of the preventative measures that we're taking in the country, that this will be a short-lived event. But in financial planning, we want to make sure that we are also exploring the options if this goes on for many months or maybe even a year. I think that that's really important for us to understand what that does for the city of Imperial Beach. And then we also want to talk about the recovery, what it looks like in our community as we start to recover from this, because the issues we're going to talk about tonight and the things that we're proposing to the City Council are going to have an impact on some of the goals and priorities that the City Council has established. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about what recovery looks like in our community. So we want to talk about why we are just looking at the general fund. We have really 4 categories of revenue in our city. We have the sewer enterprise fund, and what we have determined is that people, especially now that they are homebound, are probably likely to use roughly the same amount of water, if not more water, and essentially the sewer enterprise fund, the revenues from that are generated by the use of the water in your home. So we don't think that there'll be an impact there. On the intergovernmental funds, that's about a total of $48,000 in our budget. So it's a very, very small number, but that's basically reimbursements that we get from the state. So we don't think that those will be impacted. And then finally, our internal service funds, like our risk management fund or our IT fund, those are actually funded by the general fund. So really what we need to look at are the impacts that we're going to have on the general fund. And the general fund is really cut into several revenue categories, and you can see them on the screen. There are fees, fines, intergovernmental, other, taxes and transfers. So we wanted to go through those, and we went through every single revenue source in the budget. We didn't shortcut anything. We literally went through every single revenue source and have made some determinations that we want to share with the city council. So from fees that are generated in the general fund, one of the things that we've noticed is that we believe that there's going to be a reduction in the fees. And in the general fees of the city, you can see on the slide that we anticipate there'll be about an $80,000 reduction in fees for the year. The Port of San Diego is by far the largest producer of fees in the city. I have had numerous conversations with the Port of San Diego, and they have indicated that at least in FY20, we can expect that we will receive all of our maintenance service agreement monies that we receive from the port. So that's very comforting. But we still think, that said, there's going to be about an $80,000 loss in fees in the general fund in FY20. So moving to FY21, I'm not sure, we went really fast there. Moving to FY21, you'll see though, the same distance. We still think that there's going to be an impact on some of our general fees, but just to be safe, even though the port has indicated to us that they anticipate that they will continue to fund fully our MSA, we did reduce that by about 5%, and you can see that the difference there is about $245,000 from the Port of San Diego for a total reduction in fees in fiscal year 21, which is June 30th of 2021, of $323,000. And so that's something that we wanted to point out to the city council. Other, and you can see other listed here, the other funds that affect the general fund, we wanted to make sure, we do believe that there will be a decline in business licenses, at least for the rest of this year and the beginning of next year. And then eventually we hope that all the businesses in our community will recover and we can move forward. But you'll notice about halfway down the column on what is in yellow, which is the FY20 numbers, we believe that there is going to be a drastic decrease in the allocated interest that we receive. We've all been watching the stock market, and so we think that our investments are likely to earn less interest than what we anticipate. But then in FY21, we would anticipate that the market, we hope, will recover, at least the interest portion of the market will recover, so we're not showing a deficit there. But essentially, you can see that the FY20 reduction would be about $168,000, and in FY21, about $86,000. Taxes is probably the easiest one to talk about because we know this is a little easier to understand. We know that there are going to be impacts from taxes, and especially our sales tax and our transit occupancy tax. I did want to point out, and we talked about this a lot, the challenge that Imperial Beach has is that in really, really good times, our revenues are pretty stable. And in really, really bad times, our revenues are relatively stable. And that's because you can see that property tax is by far our largest tax. It comes in at a little over $7 million, and property taxes are relatively stable. We should point out that, as all of you know, the taxes have already been assessed for this fiscal year, and the valuation on the residences and businesses and commercial properties in our community for next year have already been identified. So if there is an impact from this, it will likely show up in fiscal year 22. The nice thing that the city council recently did is we did refund the redevelopment bonds, the tax allocation bonds, and that will be an influx into our general fund of several $100,000, and that begins in fiscal year 22. All told, that will actually, over the period of the bonds, will actually provide about $2.8 million to our general fund. So we also wanted to talk a little bit about sales tax. Sales tax, we anticipate that, remember, we're about 66% of the way, we're about 2/3 of the way through our fiscal year right now, or 66.7%. And so when we look at sales tax, we know that it will continue to trickle in a little bit. There'll be a little bit that comes in from people either purchasing gasoline, maybe some purchases that they make at some of our restaurants that are still open. So we know that there will be a little bit, but we anticipate that there will be a 20% drop in the sales tax, even though most of it has been collected for the year, about 2/3 of it. And we also believe that will carry over into FY21. And so we have reduced the sales tax numbers by 20% in each of those years. Transit occupancy tax, we made it through about 2/3 of the year, but we do believe that there is going to be a drop in the transit occupancy tax of approximately 25% this year and 25% next year as we have to rebound from this situation. So you can see that there's a drop in taxes of about $485,000, $486,000 in FY20 and $519,000 in FY21. So there's a couple of the categories that I didn't mention there, and we think that they will have limited impact, and that is fines, the intergovernmental transfers that we have, and then the internal transfers from the general fund. Those internal transfers, for example, are services that the general fund provides to the non-general fund entities in the city. So, and maybe an example of that would be the payroll for the sewer department. Even though the sewer department is not in the general fund, the finance department provides payroll services and insurance and other things for the sewer department. So there's some money transferred from the sewer department to the general fund. We don't anticipate any impact on those transfers. So when you look at the summary of the impact on the general fund over the next couple fiscal years, we anticipate in FY20 a shortfall of about $733,000, and then in FY21 a shortfall of about $928,000, for a total impact of about $1.7 million. Just so people understand how that impacts the general fund. The general fund is about between $21 and $22 million, so it is a big hit. That's a 5% or 6% hit on our general fund, and so that's important, and we need to plan for that. So the way we are looking at making sure that we address these issues is that we are looking at some one-time expenditure reallocations, or requesting the City Council to consider them, and that would be to delay construction of the skate park, to delay the community enhancement project. We will use CDBG to complete some of our crosswalks rather than the CIP monies that were allocated. The one thing that I want to point out for anybody that's listening, and the City Council deserves a lot of credit for this, one of the things that Imperial Beach did, even just this year, we have established what's referred to as an economic uncertainty fund. And that fund was actually at about $1.8 million last year, even though we wanted it to be 10% of our budget. The City Council, when they adopted the budget this year, even though it was painful, I'm sure they would have much rather used that money other ways and done other projects in the community, had the restraint to make sure that we fully funded our economic uncertainty fund and moved it up to $2 million. That turns out to be a brilliant decision by the City Council, and the residents and the city staff will really benefit from that. But we do anticipate allocating $475 from the economic uncertainty fund, leaving a balance in that uncertainty fund of about $1.5 million. We hope to get some federal, state, and county reimbursements. We believe that we've already submitted some to the county, and we believe that we will get some. I know that's a very small number. We're spending a lot more money than that, but our experience is that the federal and state and county reimbursements typically go to the larger communities, and lots of times they don't trickle all the way down to the smaller communities like Imperial Beach. So we aren't counting on very much of this being reimbursed. I think it's on us. And then we plan to implement some hiring and spending freezes and some personnel changes that will essentially will reduce expenditures by about $300,000, and that gets us to that $1.66 million to make sure that we continue to operate in a balanced budget scenario. So I wanted to talk about a few of those financial policies that we are asking the City Council to consider at your next meeting. Tonight, again, this is a receive and file report so that we can get your feedback and any public comment. And then we hope to put this item on the agenda on April 1st so that we can implement some of these policies. The first would be a soft hiring freeze. We would want to only replace the essential and necessary positions. We do, on occasion, have vacancies. Either people retire or they take employment other places. We would carefully analyze each one of those positions, and we would only hire essential positions until we have what we are defining as recovery. And we'll talk about what that looks like in just one moment. We also want to have a soft spending freeze. We want to be able to place limitations on expenditures by city employees and department heads that need to be approved by management to make sure that we are carefully watching every dollar during this time. I think we always carefully watch every dollar, but there are simply times like this where we are going to have to make decisions about whether something is an essential need or whether something is something that is great to have, but not essential. And so we want to make sure we implement a soft spending freeze. We are suggesting the suspension of all training and travel for both staff and the City Council until we have emerged from this situation. And those are just some of the things that we're looking at. And I know the City Council has, and it's online as well, there is copies on our webpage of the full plan, but that gives you at least some of the major policies. Then we wanted to make sure that everybody knows that we are looking at and preparing for a prolonged event. Phase 1 is what we're talking about right now, and that's implementation of the actions that are included in this financial plan so that we can move forward with that. Phase 2 would require us to look at additional allocation of our economic uncertainty fund. We would have to likely look at reductions in staff-related expenses, and we would have to eliminate all discretionary expenses. And we would even probably have to look at whether or not we could use some of our reserves. We don't want to go there at this point, but we would have to look at that. Excuse me. Phase 3 would be the allocation of all of our reserves at this point, and we would have to look to employee concessions and perhaps even a reduction in workforce. And then if this prolongs and goes on and on, Phase 4 would be reductions in city services. We would maybe have to decide which departments we can continue to operate, and we would have to have a serious restructuring of personnel. We hope, like DEFCON and other things that people in this community understand, we don't want to get to DEFCON 4. We really hope that we are prepared and we are ready to respond to Phase 1, and we believe that we are ready to go with that. So where do we go from here? We need to take a look ahead. So what does recovery look like? As I spoke with the assistant city manager, we put a definition of recovery as 2 months of sustained recovery markers. And basically those recovery markers are when monthly revenues are generating pre-emergency amounts. So when we have 2 months of the revenues in the general fund generating the amounts that they were generating before this crisis, then we believe that we are in a recovery mode instead of having to be in a crisis situation. Then we need to look forward. How do we catch up? So as we know, in normal times, our revenue and expenditures are essentially equal. That's the way essentially Imperial Beach is structured. But we're going to have to look at replacement of our economic uncertainty in our capital funds. These projects we wanted to do, we still want to improve our skate park. We still want to do some work on Seacoast Drive and some of the other projects that the City Council has identified. So we need to start thinking about looking at all the city assets. What assets do we have that we might be able to tap into to make sure that we are able to catch up and get back on track and do some of the things that the City Council wants us to do? Before this crisis, we were even looking at doing a survey of our residents about doing some revenue generation so that we could continue to look at things like, I think the mayor has adequately mentioned that we're the only city in the county that does not have a recreation department. We want to be able to do some of those things in our community. So we're really looking forward to how now do we replace the monies that we've lost and move forward. So I know that was really quick. This was a big effort to try to put together quickly, and I again really appreciate Erica and all the members of the City Council for their assistance with this. But I think it's really, really important that we have a roadmap rather than doing this off the cuff. I think that we will be miles ahead by having a roadmap, and then we will constantly, as the mayor's task force on recovery, we will constantly update the City Council because this will be a little bit organic, and we want to watch our revenues every single day, watch our expenditures every single day, and provide you with updates as we go. So, Mayor, if you don't have any immediate questions for us, we would take a break again and see if there are any public comments. But if you have any immediate questions for us, we'd be glad to take them now.
Well, Mr. Hall, if the council doesn't mind, we'll go right to public comment, and then we can have this public City Council discussion. Is that okay?
Perfect, Mayor.
Good. Okay. City Clerk Kelly, you want to read the public comment section?
Yes, Mayor. Once again, we will take an approximate 3-minute recess to allow residents to submit any questions or comments by email. Please submit comments on the agenda item via email to comments@imperialbeachca.gov. Thank you.
I'm calling the meeting back to order. If there are no public comments, the public comment period is now closed. And we can start City Council discussion beginning with Councilmember Patton.
Okay, here we go. I know City Manager Hall, Assistant City Manager Cortez, and the rest of the crew there have probably had a lot of sleepless nights working on this. It's a great report, and it goes pretty deep. And looking into the finances, I read the finance report a number of times. Thankfully, we went into this pretty strong. And nothing I heard on the early part is really worrying me like it's going to break us if we stay on the early phases, phase A or B, or phase 1 or 2, whatever it was. So I'm going to really concentrate on those. We stick on phase 1 and 2, and hopefully we're done. But I know changes are so fluid, who knows? And City Manager Hall mentioned, I think it was triggers, or he had a word for it, where certain things would happen and they'd do something else. So I think that's great. And I know he's looking at so many different scenarios. One thing I think super important when finally we land on our feet again is we get those youth programs back up. We get the skate park back up ASAP. And those things that we already had on the plate, that they're not shuffled to the side. And whatever it takes, even if it's a modified version of a skate park or half of what we wanted, or we need to get that going. Because right now, all our youth right now, they're stuck in their houses. So we need to make sure we take care of them as well. And I guess my last comment or question is, City Manager Hall, when would be our next report on this? If you have that answer.
You bet. That's a great question. We will be updating you at every one of your meetings. And so as we resume our regular meeting schedule on the first and third Wednesday of each month, I think it warrants a standing item on the agenda to just give you an update of anything more we've learned. Even if that update is nothing new, we're going to leave it as a standing item so that we can update the City Council. This is really critical stuff.
Yeah, I think that's perfect to do. So on that, there's so much here. I could speak for 20 minutes, but I'm going to let the rest of the council speak and hear what they want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Patton. I really appreciate your insight and your concern for our youth. I think that's something I share and we'll comment on, but I really appreciate your insight and your concern for the most vulnerable members of our community. Mr. West.
Yeah. First of all, I do want to thank Andy and City Manager Hall and Assistant City Manager Cortez. This is a thorough and well-developed plan that I've spoken to many of my council colleagues throughout the San Diego County region, and none of them are even at this stage in their city. They are really just reacting at this time. So this is phenomenal work, and I think that you guys should go home tonight and really rest ease that you have put this together and thought this through, because it is awesome. I do share many of the ideas that Councilmember Patton brought forth. I think it's really important that our residents are not going to be happy, nor should we even think about any type of revenue generation that's going to cause for taxes to go up, because no one is going to be able to be in that position for a long time. And we all know, after many times that we've gone over this budget, that the cost for safety in our communities continues to rise at a pace that the cities can't keep up with. So what does that mean? We've got to figure out ways to generate revenue that are outside the box. And I know that City Manager Hall brought some of those up, and really we need to look at those for the future, because right now I think that all of us can say these continual major economic shifts, they seem to be happening with way more frequency and at way greater impacts. It was the Great Recession, the 9/11, and they're not just little events where our economy is going down. They're major economic impacts that are happening. So we really need to think about what are the ways that the city of Imperial Beach can raise revenue in significant amounts to make sure that we are prepared and replenishing all of our economic funds. So I think that that's important that we have that discussion. And I think it's important that we need to have a relief fund. And I would like to see if there's a way that we can establish, like our friends over in San Diego did today, a small business relief fund. And can that be established, and can that be put together? Because it is more than one of our businesses has reached out to me recently and is on lifeblood. They were struggling before this economic downturn, and now they're really going to be looking at closing their doors. And that is not an effect just on the tax revenue, but those are the employees that live in our city and are contributing to our city. So I would like to see if there's some way that we could get a small business relief fund placed into our plans for the future. But we got to make sure that taxes are not going to be something that we're going to be able to raise, because that is just not the local person is just going to be recovering. And if unemployment is expected to rise at such a significant amount, I'm reading reports today of hitting 13% taxes. We cannot expect our residents to pay more taxes. So I would like for us to see to kind of go back and really figure out ways that we can generate revenue for our community, because I too would like to see us build our skate park at some level, or bring back a recreational services department that we need for our community, because our youth deserve it and our residents deserve it throughout. So yeah, that's really all I have that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. West. Mr. Spriggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this council has has it right. I mean, I agree completely with the comments of both my colleagues who have spoken already. It's been a real a pleasure to have been able to work with the city manager on some of the concepts behind this report, as well as some of the phased measures, which I think we're still working on, and we have to be very adaptive to whatever conditions we face, particularly after phase one, which is kind of, the immediate things and the short-term things and the things we can address within our low-hanging fruit of resources. When we get beyond that, we start having to, reach for those apples that are higher on the tree and that are more difficult and dangerous to get. And that's really what I think we're going to need to spend some time working on, and I look forward to that challenge. I've been through this stuff about 3 times while in a senior position at UCSD, where we had major state recessions and cutbacks, and several times in the Foreign Service and in senior positions as well. And the kind of preparation that Andy has led us through here, I think, and the thinking is just excellent. When I've looked at this stuff that he shared with me, the things that I would add or differ with are very minor compared to other situations that I've been in where we've had to just go toe to toe to come up with a plan like this. So I can just say that I think we're in really good shape, and with our planning so far. Also, you guys on the council, members of the council, including past members, including Andy and staff, who've helped create the reserves that we have. This is remarkable, and it's going to really help us going through this. And this is exactly why we've been on the right track to create reserves, and I think this will teach us that we need to establish additional reserves for key purposes as well, along the lines that Councilmember West talked about. How do we help the business community in win-win public-private partnerships that are flexible and easy to use, and that get businesses over the humps that they're going to face in this crisis and maybe future ones. It's one of the reasons I've always advocated for a kind of investment fund or enterprise fund, because again, if we want to do something like convert the education building into something that's going to produce more revenue for the city, again, revenue in the future, we're going to need it. We're going to need funds for that. If we are going to recover from this and begin to, say, create a recreation department or some of the other things that our citizens really need, youth programs, senior programs, the skate park as conceived or modified or whatever, we're going to need funds for that. And for those reasons, the one thing I would say that is a little bit different from this report is on phase 3, where it says allocation of reserves. We must not allocate all of our reserves, all of our general fund reserves. We have to leave something in the bank so that we can recover and come out of this. And it'll take money to recover. It'll take money to possibly do reorganizations, the kinds of, if this gets really bad and we really do dip into reserves, we'll be looking at possible reorganizations and restructurings, et cetera. That may cost current money to do that, I can just tell you. So we wouldn't want to go broke before we start looking at some of these other measures like employee concessions, et cetera. One of our core values here is protecting and preserving our employees, and as well as the city's ability to recover and our ability to maintain essential services. So we may want to consider, and this is all stuff we have to work on a lot more, but I'm just planting it in your minds right now so that it's not a surprise if it comes up later. We may, if this gets really bad and goes on for 6 or 8 months and we run out of our reserves up to a point, we may want to consider reductions in time, 10%, 15, 20%, et cetera. I'm just going to say it, even though the city manager may not have wanted to say it or dwell on it. But that preserves the employment relationship, and that preserves the income for the employees, and it helps us preserve our city functions. So I'm just saying we have no idea how long this is going to go on. We're doing what we can in Imperial Beach, but if our health system breaks down because elsewhere in the city and the county and the state, people aren't doing what they need to do, and we overwhelm the health system, and this gets out of control, that would be a disaster, and that would put us in the position of some other places, possibly like Italy or others that we have yet to hear from, where this is just going to go on for many months. And I pray that doesn't happen. But our job as fiduciaries for the city is to really think about all the different consequences in what we would do. And we've done a better job of that, council members, than I think just about any other city I've ever seen or heard of. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schreggs. Appreciate that, Councilmember Pro Tem McGarry. I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem McGarry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, again, want to applaud the hard work that City Manager Hall and Assistant City Manager Cortez put into this. I know for a fact that they worked very long hours over the weekend. I continue to receive emails even 12, 1 in the morning, so I know how much work went into this, so I'm very grateful for that. I'm also grateful that we're being proactive and planning ahead to keep our city financially viable. I'll reiterate that these are difficult times and that, we will have to make these sacrifices by delaying some of our projects that are so needed. But thankfully, hopefully it's just a delay and not a cancellation. I do believe that these temporary sacrifices will allow our city workers to remain and for us to not have to make concessions or reductions in staff. Thankfully, our city has steady sources of funding, and that has allowed us to have this stability in these difficult times. But at the end of the day, the economy will be very uncertain, right, in the next few months. And I'm just hopeful that we don't have to enter phase 2 or phase 3. But that being said, I think this is an incredibly important and critical step in the right direction. I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, but I understand that we are one of the only cities that are already working on this, and that makes me incredibly proud. And I just hope that, at the end of the day, we continue to protect our business community, that we get our workforce back into work, and that we avoid entering into decisions that are going to be very hard to make if we were to end up in phase 3 and phase 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem McGarry. I'm going to echo my colleagues' comments. Thank you, Mr. Hall and Assistant City Manager Cortez. Really well-written document, excellent, superb analysis done. I want to echo what Mr. Patton said, though, in that, what's the vision? And I think that's what's important to understand, that Imperial Beach people come first. What's clear in Imperial Beach is our people, we have so many folks that live on the edge that need the services that we don't provide that other cities provide. So, are deficient and, rundown senior center that needs to be rebuilt, our lack of a Parks and Recreation department, our lack of a swimming pool, our closed beaches, and adverse impacts and health impacts from the Tijuana River just make it hard enough for our residents. And then compound that by what's going to be an economic crisis for many of our residents who were already in an economic crisis and living on the edge, which means that once again our funding goes down, but the need for investment in our community, investment in our seniors, investment in our children, investment in public health, investment in quality of life, and making sure that every resident of IB counts, and that we invest in improving the quality of life of our residents and making sure everybody has an equal shot at a great quality of life in IB is going to be more important than ever, right? So we're going to have to be really aggressive in seeking the grant monies and recovery dollars that are out there at the federal, state, and county levels to make sure that Imperial Beach isn't eliminated from those programs, as we always seem to be. And we're going to have to be really aggressive on continuing to address the Tijuana River issue, because we can't recover if the sewage levels continue where they're at. We're not going to be getting a lot more investment. So superb work, but we have a lot more work to do. And then we can't allow that negative feedback loop where declining revenues, economic crisis, and no capacity to address the very basic needs of our residents who will be more impacted than ever. So again, thanks for the great work. And we have a lot of work to do. And we just have to remember at the end of the day that this city exists to serve the people who live here. And those people are going to be hurting, and they're going to be hurting even more. So we're going to have to really reach out to every elected official that, in theory, serves us, to make sure they understand that we need to get some investment and to help those folks that are hurting. So with that, I want to thank everybody for that item. No action is required on this item. However, staff has requested that after direction of the City Council, this item is placed on the April 1st agenda for ratification. And with that, I am closing the open session of the City Council at 7:02 p.m. And the City Council will go into closed session. Thank you very much. City Council members, please hang up this call and dial in the closed session lines. Thanks.